back. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jonas with another episode of Veterans in Politics. Today we have a special treat for you. We have two Vietnam War veterans that are now authors. We have Robert Foust and we have Keith Rogers. And Keith Rogers was a columnist for the Las Vegas Review Journal back in the day. Excellent columnist. I used to read his column every so often, especially when he mentions my name. So
I was actually a reporter. I wasn't a columnist.
Oh, reporter. That's right. Columnists don't follow the journalism jargon. They write anything, at least, and it's basically their opinion. But anyways, Jim, you have anything?
Yeah, just real quick. I think next week we'll get more into the fallout of the election and be able to break things down a little bit more.
What election?
The presidential election, and then there's a lot of other local elections that people aren't paying attention to that Steve and I have. But there's just, waking up this morning, there's not a clear winner yet. And there's just all kinds of stuff out there about how they're stealing ballots and someone's robbed me from this or that. To be perfectly honest with you, I think that we all just need to stop, show some patience. For years, I just think, and I'm going to leave it at this, I just think it's interesting that how our culture has changed over the years. Because I remember when my dad and mom would go to vote for president, they were always so pissed that by the time they got to the polls, they were already projecting a state. Or, that this guy was, this man or woman was already going to win the presidency. And they're like, well, my vote doesn't count. So why am I even doing this? So now we're in a society where we're going to have to wait. So I'd rather wait. Everybody just calm down. Let's figure it out. I don't care if you're Trump, Biden. And to be perfectly honest with you, and I'm just going to leave you at this. The reason why the Electoral College and presidential elections are so screwed up every 4 years is because none of you pay attention to the state legislatures. They're the ones that write the laws on how these ballots are counted. So everybody is confused. How can Georgia lean one way and then we wake up and it's leaning the other way? It's because according to Georgia law or Wisconsin law or Michigan law or Pennsylvania law or Nevada law, the way in which they count votes is different between each state. And so if you have a problem with that, then there's a simple solution. Shut up and actually understand why these laws are written and vote for the people that you want to write the laws that will benefit you. That's how this country is supposed to be run. So anyway, that's my rant.
Lovely. I have nothing. Next show I might have a rant. But we have two fabulous guests. We have Robert Foust and Keith Rogers, who wrote this book called The Last Draftees. And first, Mr. Foust, could we get a bio about you?
Well,
a bio about you.
Yes, I'm about 72 years old, and I was drafted in 1968. I was pretty naive at the
68.
time. 68? Yeah, 1968.
I was a year old.
Yeah, and so I was drafted into the Army, and I became a computer operator and a.
You're a geek?
Yeah, I was a geek. I was a computer programmer, believe it or not, and I was a 74 D2P, which is an airborne. I went to jump school as an airborne computer programmer, and so when I got sent from Fort Benning, Georgia, where I was a holdover, they were trying to get me to go to officer candidate school, which I didn't want any part of, and I didn't want any part of the Army. But I was making good. And
let's put it out there, Mr. Foust.
Yeah, I will put it out there. Yeah. And so they sent me to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and made me a clerk and a computer programmer after they wasted all the money training me to be a paratrooper and being an infantryman. Wow. So I was strolling along doing my duty as a computer programmer when there was a problem. It seems that I was suspected of smuggling marijuana onto Fort Bragg from California.
Did you?
But they couldn't prove that. No, I'm not going to answer that question. They couldn't prove it. But what there was a payroll robbery.
A payroll robbery.
A payroll robbery, and some of our troopers, our loyal troopers, they were probably draftees just like me, had formulated a false payroll for an entire brigade.
Oh shit!
And they submitted it to the jump pay, and I punched it up on the IBM machines. I punched up the jump pay, so I became a conspirator in payroll robbery. And
did they get paid? The troops get paid by this false payroll?
Oh yeah, they cashed all the checks, and then they each got 10 years in Leavenworth prison.
Oh,
but not Bob.
But I didn't get 10 years in Fort Leavenworth prison.
What did you get?
2 years in Vietnam, or a year in Vietnam.
I think I'd rather do the year in Vietnam than go to prison.
You know, I thought about that because, I said, well, if they send me to Vietnam, there isn't really going to be a big call for computer programmers. So I'll probably be someplace pretty safe in some nice secure area or something. Well, it turns out that they didn't need any computer programmers in Vietnam, but they did need some infantrymen.
That was you.
And that was my secondary MOS. And so that was me.
At least you had something to fall back on.
Yeah, I did. And so that's my story, and I'm pretty much sticking to it. And then during my tour of Vietnam, I started seeing the world as it really is. I have to tell you, I saw the truth. I didn't see God, I saw the truth.
And what was the truth?
And the truth is, marijuana is good, Vietnam is bad. And the Army is terrible. And so...
You've been hanging out with Bob Marley, huh?
So I became a marijuana trafficker. When I returned from the Army. I wanted to play baseball. I was a professional baseball player, pitcher. And I wanted to play baseball, but nobody seemed to want Vietnam veterans.
Why?
I think it had something to do with the Rambo issue. I don't think they wanted Rambo on their bench. You can't intimidate me.
Right. And
that's the problem. And the college coaches and the younger professional coaches, they want to intimidate somebody. So
they want to mold them.
They do. And the people in baseball, it's systemic discrimination is what it is, because they systemically discriminated against Vietnam veterans, professional baseball, all sports, all professional sports. These are some of the top paying jobs in the United States, in the world. And we don't get a shot at it?
Yeah.
Because we might damage one of your bonus babies or something in a clubhouse brawl, or, who knows what we are. Who knows if we're loaded or we're not loaded. So I became a marijuana trafficker. And for years, I brokered marijuana, tons of marijuana. I'm not going to be shy about it. And I did business all over the United States and Canada.
He did business all over the United States. Well, where marijuana was illegal.
It's Bob's sequel to Draftees.
Well, at any rate, I finally got caught. And I did
After how long?
I did 4 years. After about 4 years, I had a pretty successful business. I had a nice ranch, cars, and But I would not deal in heroin or even cocaine, and I think they both should be legal. Yeah. I'll go right out and say that. I think they should both be legal, but they're not, and that's a shame. And
at least we got marijuana legal.
We did. And I feel good about that, because I trafficked a lot of marijuana, I'll tell you that.
Wow.
And I feel good about that.
You did 4 years where?
In Canada. in a prison called Matskly.
But now that it's legal, that would have cut into your profit. So why are you so proud of it now? Because when it was illegal.
Because it is legal, but I agree with you on the tax situation, and that's the next battle. That is the next battle. We're going to get rid of the 15% tax on marijuana. But let's talk about last chapter.
Oh, let's go with Mr. Roger here. Tell us about your bio.
Okay. I was drafted in 1972 in the last 10,000, 15,000 who were ever called up out of 1.8 million men drafted during the Vietnam War. Now, I'm 68 years old now. Right. So 50 years ago, I was 18 and I was getting my draft number. And, I was always thinking the war was going to be over by the time, I became draft age. But that didn't happen, of course. But to make a long story short, what I saw, each of us saw different experiences. And we wanted to take a cross section of the Vietnam War that spanned from Willie McTeer's induction through my induction. He's the oldest. Bob and Larry are in between. Larry Keller is up in, he lives in the Northwest, Pacific Northwest. And I wore this shirt for Larry today because this was the kind of a story behind it, how all these guys contacted me at one time during my career. Now, I have a 40-year journalism career, and I don't know how many hundreds, thousands of stories I've written about veterans over those years. But
I used to read a lot of it.
But of all the veterans and all the issues that we went to bat for and to expose the situation with the VA and all that, Bob and Larry and Willie, we didn't know each other. They contacted me, but their stories are so compelling about why we are who we are, not just as our individuals, but as a nation as a whole, because we came from 4 different corners of the United States.
And as far as their stories being the same, they're totally different.
Yeah. I mean, Bob, Willie, and Larry, all combat veterans. I had a different duty. My duty was military police at Fort McNair. I was in the 561st MP detachment. And General Alexander Haig, the chief of staff for Nixon's White House after he fired Ehrlichman and Haldeman, lived on our post. So I had the inside view at the end game in the war when Haig was trying to talk Nixon into resigning. And when we were writing this book and all of the events happening over the last 2 years, we were sitting there going like, this is deja vu.
Steve, this chronicles the changes in equipment, in attitude about how the Black Panthers got into Vietnam and what they did over there. And the equipment changes and the rule changes. And it's really a fascinating study. But before that, this book looks into conscription and the draft. And we wrote this book as a devil's advocate to Joe Heck, General Joe Heck, Dr. Joe Heck. You know who he is. He's a former congressman from Nevada.
No, and we don't know him at all.
We felt that Congress oversees the draft, all right? And we felt that somebody in Congress threw him a bone to do this study that he did.
It was the National Commission on Military Service and Public Service, and he lumped them. What he did was he blurred the line between volunteering for public service like Peace Corps and
Job Corps,
being mandated to.
Are we still in your bio, Mr. Rogers?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
Well, what else you want to hear?
Whenever you're ready, whenever you said that.
Okay.
It's
Anyhow,
done.
okay. So I served from 72 to 74 with the military district of Washington, and we did patrols, for security of Haig's daughter, and there was a lot going on there. But yeah, that was essentially my bio. But while I was stationed at Fort McNair, I realized that we were if there was never going to be a draft again, we would be the last draftees, and that's where.
So that's how you guys came up with the name,
Right.
Yeah, we came up with this back in. I actually had written something to a friend one time and used that word "last draftees" in it. So, and it's held true today. And but our motivation, our experiences, were all different. It's an apolitical book because it spanned, as you said.
You're talking about civil rights and corruption.
It talks about everything. Yeah, that's what I was
and Robert L. Greene, who was a friend of Martin Luther King's and is a professor emeritus at Michigan State University, and who led to the racial reform in the Big Ten, and made sure that there were some of the first athletes in there. Black referees at the Big Ten games and black cheerleaders. And he blazed the trail for racial reform while I was there on the campus where I was drafted from. I was actually drafted, from college because 2S deferments were not allowed in the last year of the draft.
What was your major in college? Journalism?
I was in engineering.
Engineering
major.
How did you get to journalism after?
After I was drafted, and I saw Woodward and Bernstein's reporting. That's why I wanted to get into writing. I had to learn how to write first.
Right.
But like I said, the other two co-authors, Willie and Larry, are other draftees as well that contacted us, and I put their stories together.
Do they live here?
Willie does. Willie lives in North Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. He writes in one of the blogs we have at lastdraftees.com. That's lastdraftees.com. You can go read Willie's blog. You can see our video archive. You can see our slide character portraits. It's all. You can order the book there. It's available on Amazon. Really, Willie writes. We really delved into the roots of the draft, and it stems back to the Civil War.
Is this you?
That's me.
Mr. Foust, this is you up here?
That's me.
That's him.
And who's this?
That's my stepbrother, James.
Oh, okay. How did you two get on the cover?
Well, it's easy. We took the picture, we posted it up, and there we are.
That's an Instamatic slide shot that James had, and so was the one on the back of Bob there. Uh-huh. I think I had just turned 20 in that photo. But Willie, points out in his blog that the roots of the draft go back to the Civil War, and it was a form of involuntary servitude, slavery. So we have a law in the books that is unconstitutional in the fact that involuntary servitude is unconstitutional. Selective service is not part of the Constitution. You see, they're blurring the line. They're taking a law that's not a constitutional guarantee, and they've morphed it over the years so that a lot of the poor and minorities, history has shown. You can look at the facts, and we point them out in the book.
What's the first draft? What's the first? What is the first fault of the draft? The first corruption, first act of corruption of the draft.
Yeah,
you're forced to go.
Buy your way out of it.
Yes, and exactly.
I thought you're forced to go was the first corruption.
Well, that is a corrupt act.
You could buy your way out back in the Civil War. Willie writes, the practice still exists today as evidenced not so much with money exchanging hands, but with those rich enough to hire and pay doctors to falsify and manufacture a condition to qualify them for exemption from selective service.
Bun spurs in your elbow.
Yeah. That leaves the poor and disenfranchised to be drafted. If he defied the draft order, he then is labeled a draft dodger, a felony offense which carries a prison term up to 5 years.
You can be shot for draft dodging.
I'm just one, and Willie writes, I'm just one of the approximate 9,000 men who were drafted and made up the 9th Infantry Division. The chapter we write about Willie's trip over on the boat was called Slave Ship Deja Vu. And it's like, we all came over on different boats.
So this guy is Willie.
That's
Yes.
Willie McTeer. And we all came over on different boats, but we're all on the same boat now. And they're going back that way. And that's a John Lewis quote, by the way. Rest in peace, John. Each patrol was a suicide mission. We would have liked the choice to choose the branch of service and a military occupation specialty. But that was not an option for draftees, only a carrot that was dangled to get us to enlist. We viewed this as punishment for not volunteering. We all gave some and some gave all, rest in peace. After several firefights, we realized how the draft board and America really felt about us. Sergeant Bill Reynolds said it best, America is not with us. Enough said. Without a word said, we understood that we had a special bond, and from this point on, we will fight for each other because we had been abandoned. More abandonment was revealed and manifested upon our arrival home, not as heroes, but as villains. We were spat upon and cursed at. Our government didn't have the decency to give us heads up on our arrival. That really hurt deep. The wounds inflicted are invisible and manifested in many ways. Many of us grapple with post-traumatic stress disorder and sense of not belonging and not being good enough to be accepted as soldiers. So thank you, Draft Board, for souls lost and lives destroyed by repair. This is what Willie asked me to read for this show.
How did you guys come up with the name The Last Draftees?
Well,
It was all Keith.
we looked at, in history, if you look at the periods of draft, World War I, World War II, Korean War, these are the last. Because we went to the volunteer army. The Vietnam War draftees, we hope, will be the last draftees forever.
Joe Heck's commission wants to reinstate the draft, okay? And they want to reactivate the draft, and they want to make it eligible for women to be drafted.
In all genders.
Is this a part of the selective service?
Yes, this is the Selective
You
Service
saying we
Administration.
should get rid of the selective service?
Yes.
Abolish
we don't need it.
selective service. That's-
Millions of dollars to
That-
go somewhere else.
that acronym, Abolish Selective Service, ASS, don't forget it.
Yes. The Selective Service is just a cancer on society. It takes people that don't want to be involved in wars, in service. And you know yourself, Steve. You served twice. And you know that the military isn't for everybody. You have to be able to do ungodly things to be a combat soldier. And some people just can't do it. And it's not right to force them.
And here's the other thing, Steve. The all-volunteer army has worked successfully for 47 years.
Yeah.
Why do you want to expand the selective service system? You need to abolish the selective service system. Get rid of the bureaucracy.
The problem is,
Okay, well, let me. I'm going to interject real quick. I think one of the biggest problems that civilians like myself, okay, that have never served, don't understand is that for some reason, and I agree with both of you. I do not agree with the draft. I just like, you don't put somebody in a situation like that does not want to be there. That's silly to me.
You get people killed though.
But yeah, exactly.
Nothing to laugh about, really.
But I think where some of the problem is that you have a government now, especially, that is just trying their best to get people to understand, to contribute to the country in some way.
Yeah.
and
Does
that's
that make sense?
and that's the difference between the selective service and the
Right.
army and public service like Job Corps and what's the other one?
Jury duty.
Huh?
Job Corps, Peace Corps. But that's what they do, and the commission has done is they've blurred the line.
Right.
People think that selective service is like,
They
one of
will
the
make
things
you
you
a
can
killer.
volunteer for. It's not.
They will make you a killer, plain and simple. If you're not a killer when you go in, you will be one when you come out. We don't need it. We just don't need it. Let wars be for the people that want to kill. Let those people that want to join up and fight. And I don't care if women want to join up and fight. Women can if they can do the job, they can do the job. I couldn't imagine a woman being with me in Vietnam. I couldn't imagine having a woman on my Ranger team.
But see, and
some say they might be a distraction.
The issue is though, they
once a month they bleed, and then they stink.
To draft them.
And then the Vietnamese, the army, they smell that out there in the jungle. These people have senses that you wouldn't believe. And there's just no reason to have them out there in that situation.
No.
That's just a small reason why.
Mr. Foust, could you say that one more time about the women? I kind of
women tend to bleed about once a month, and it smells.
They bleed and smell.
It bleed and the drainage. It smells. And the North Vietnamese, they have such senses, such extraordinary smell.
Without canines, they could smell that.
These are the North Vietnamese soldiers. They can smell it. They have extraordinary senses. They've been fighting this war for 17 years, okay? And they can smell you. You don't wear cologne out there. You don't brush your teeth. You don't use soap. You don't shave. You don't do anything that gives a scent out. You understand that? It's that serious out there in the jungle.
Yeah, I think that there's a misconception about this volunteering versus actually getting drafted, and they don't understand that what we need to do to make it fair for everybody is abolish it for everybody. Then everybody's on the same page. And then if you want to try and become an airborne ranger, if you're a woman or a gay, lesbian, transgender, queer, whatever, and you can qualify for the job, then you got the job.
So I think that was a homophobic slip. I don't think he meant queer.
No, it's
no, he meant. You don't have a problem with homosexuality in the military?
Well, actually, there's a part in the book where we put something in here for everybody. And
hey, you want to hear my interpretation for that?
Well,
I do.
I want to tell you something though before you say that. I did. We had this really happened, and there were 2 gay guys in my squad. I was their squad leader. I had to get them qualified.
Back in the 70s?
Back in the yes, sir.
That in there?
Yeah. Well,
I thought
they got drafted
in the closet.
They
got drafted.
Well, and there were also a lot of guys at this time that had some issue with the law, so they would say, "Go join the army, and we'll look the other way on this or whatever." So there were the last group that I was in basic training. This was a mixed bag of,
You're not getting the finest. You're not getting the best. You're not getting the country's best. You're getting trash with the draft.
And they weren't paying us.
And then your military becomes trash. Because you've drafted trash. Sign the people up that want to be there, and you'll have a strong military, and pay them and compensate them.
Well, my philosophy on homosexuality in the military is that I have no problem if gays want to serve their country, but there's a thing called you separate women from men,
right,
in barracks, right?
Yes, you do.
Because why? Because
of sexuality.
Women are attracted to men.
Yes.
And men are attracted to women.
Yes.
So if you have somebody that's attracted to men, a man that's attracted to men, how are you going to separate them?
Well, that's my case in point.
You can't separate them, right? So if they got open, so I would say have co-ed barracks and don't worry about it then.
Well, then you could do that. That
See,
was 50 years ago.
If you're joining an all-professional military, though, you have to know that you have to expect that because there are some gays that are going to want to join. So you're going to have them in your barracks, and you're going to have to deal with it.
And besides the gay
basically, this book is about ending war. To be honest with you,
it's about
to be 100% completely. Do you know that almost every country in the world today has a draft system? They conscript their soldiers. Almost every single country. Russia, China, Israel, Korea, Japan, all of them. They all have a draft system, and they all have this. Where do you think the United Nations gets its troops from? From foreign countries, right? And where do they get their troops? They draft them. because they don't have any jobs for them, or they don't have, they can't support them or whatever. So they draft them and they send them to fight these wars. So if you end conscription, you're going to end the draft worldwide. Then it's down to professional soldiers worldwide. And then we start working on that. And pretty soon we have a world at peace. What do you think? We have lived in a wartime economy for 40 years, 50 years. Maybe 60, who knows? Maybe back to World War II.
Probably actually even more than that. In my history class,
has been.
I actually learned that we have actually had U.S. troops in foreign soil since the country was created.
But are they conscripted and are they fighting? That's what I'm saying. And most of these people that are fighting and dying in this war, and most of the mercenaries these days are coming from the Mideast. They're coming from Afghanistan. They're coming from Yemen. They're coming from whatever over there in the Mideast. That's where all the mercenaries are coming from. I say let them fight the wars and let them fight them in the Holy Lands. It's a holy war. Let them fight it in the Holy Lands. We got to keep it out of this country. And the way to do that is by getting rid of the draft worldwide.
Mr. Rogers, what part do you play in this book? What's your story in here?
Well, my story is that after we all thought the war was over, it kept going on until 1975. And what I do is I tell the story about what the political climate was like in Washington, D.C., at the Military District of Washington, and what I was observing, what I was seeing, how we were, what the mindset was, what was the morale like. And, we have a situation where there's what if the president doesn't resign, then who's going to be his guards? Well, this is who we guard. So there was a lot weighing on some 19-year-old, 20-year-old minds, 21-year-old minds at the time. What do we do? Do we follow the orders? Do we, what's the right thing to do here? We were in pretty much of a predicament right then, but Al Haig fixed it for us. He got him to resign instead of...
They said the average age in Vietnam was 19 years old. Is that correct?
That's about right.
Yeah.
That's about right.
But one other point I want to make is that a lot of people don't even realize that in World War I, a lot of Native Americans were drafted and they didn't even have citizenship. Now,
Native Americans aren't even considered citizens.
They weren't. They were drafted and took the army so they could, maybe when they come home.
But isn't that how we won the war with the Native Americans? Because of the
code talkers?
The code talkers and the Vietnam didn't understand Native American language?
Exactly.
In Vietnam, the most decorated soldier was a Native American. And he was from Maine or someplace. I can't remember his name.
So we tell the story of the Rincon.
But
here they are, right here. These were a couple guys from Las Vegas. They were drafted in 1917. There's their draft records, their signatures. They thought they would sign up and come back and they could get their citizenship. They never came back. But I'll tell you what, American Indians didn't get their citizenship until 1924.
Yeah.
Why would we need citizenship for Native Americans?
Exactly. That's what we're saying. It's like, why do
they were here before you?
They need citizenship?
But they should have citizenship
of their land.
Yeah.
It's like it's backwards here, and that's what this draft thing is.
There's a story in here about a 17-year-old from Denver, Colorado, and he begged his parents to sign the waiver for him to join because he was only 17 when he graduated from high school. So he joins the Marines, and he thinks he's going to get a cush job. Well, he winds up being exceptional on telegraphs and telephones and radios and communications. So they make him a communications specialist, and they send him to Vietnam. And then they put him with the recon team, and he gets captured, and he escapes, and he gets shot, and he escapes. And it's a great story. You got to read it. But it just shows you how the Army screws you over.
And that he actually joined the Marines, but that was the thing.
Isn't that
well,
the best,
a lot of
isn't
people
that the best
join
branch of service to join?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
If you want to be in the service, it is the best branch. You've been in both. And when you go into the Marine Corps, you're dead serious about it. You know what you're doing. And you know what it entails. When you go in the Army, it's a joke, isn't it?
Mhm.
You don't know what's happening. Hell no. You're just there for their pleasure. They just kick you around like a soccer ball.
And when you go in the Air Force, you know exactly what it's about.
That's it.
Yeah,
Now
clean
we got
linen,
the
toilet
Space
paper.
Force too. So
Right. But
I went drafted for the Space Force. How about that?
when you go in the Army, or when you go in and you join the Marine Corps, you're there to kill. Plain and simple.
Mr. Foust, what's your highlights in this book?
Well,
Since you're on the
on the
since
cover.
he's on the cover.
Yeah. Well, my good looks and my charming smile, for starters. But I'll tell you.
You guys look like you're having fun out there in Vietnam.
Well, we were.
Well, Bob's got his jujubes here.
Yeah, I got my GGB.
That-
But we just smoked a big bowl of Cambodian red.
But see, notice this
so
photo
naturally
is a
we're
little
smiling
different
and
looking
happy.
back here. He's
Yeah, naturally we're smiling and happy.
this was before.
This is taken in
Is this when you first landed in Vietnam?
Oh no, I've been there about 4 or 5 months.
And you're still smiling?
Oh yeah, I'm a happy guy. I'm a happy-go-lucky guy.
You have to.
But one of my better things was I got dysentery. I mean, I had it bad. I was shitting. Excuse my language. I was shitting 35 or 40 times an hour, really. And I mean, it was just bile. And this is going on for about a week.
What did you eat?
River water.
Oh.
I drank the river water.
Yeah.
So then I didn't use the iodine tablets because they're worse than the dysentery, believe me. But so I went AWOL. We got to a fire base. We got in a firefight. We got shot up, and we had to take some time
You
off.
went AWOL in Vietnam.
So I went AWOL. I caught a bird. We got to a fire base, forward fire base. I caught a Huey helicopter to a rear LZ, a landing zone. Which a landing zone is just a helicopter base, but they have a MASH unit there.
Right.
So I went into the MASH unit.
Which is a hospital.
Yes,
People
which is
like
the Army hospital. And I went in there, and there was one gentleman ahead of me, and he was a black man. And the doctors took care of him, and then they were ready to see me. And so the doctor was kind of hesitant about seeing me because I didn't have a note or any paperwork or anything. I didn't show up. I'm shitting 60 times an hour. Can you stop it? And he says, well, you got to have a note. Well, I hit the selector switch on my rifle and turned it on to automatic. I said, does that make any difference? And it did. Holy cow. They had pills for me. So I got the pills.
He doesn't need no sticking down.
And then I went and hung out with the scout dogs. With the scout dogs, and I had quite. There's some stories in here. I'll tell you, my stories in here will kill you. They will absolutely slay you. Because there's something else. There's something else that went on when I was at that doctor's office that you have to read, but I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah. Well,
That's good.
I will share something with you though about Bob. Bob's a tall man. You're what, 6'5",
Yeah.
6, and he when he went in weighed about 240.
I weighed 215 when I went to Vietnam. I weighed 145 pounds when I came back.
Yeah.
Oh, sugar.
That's how much
That's how bad I was.
weighs.
But when I was at this fire at this LZ, and I'd gotten my pills, and the doctor told me, just stay here for a week and take it easy. You know what I mean? Here's the pills and everything, but take it easy for a week. So one night, we're right next to Graves Registration. You know what that is?
No.
Graves.
Graves Registration. When you get killed on the battlefield, where do they take you? Graves Registration.
More.
And so I was there one day. And,
Graves registry.
Graves Registration.
So you had your own morgue out there.
That's right. And it's right by the hospital, but we had them one. So one night I'm going to have a little bowl, before bed. And I go out and I see some lights going on in Graves Registration, and there shouldn't be anybody in there. I saw two guys loading body bags with kilos
Of cocaine.
heroin.
Oh.
Yeah,
And so I watched them for a while.
So that wasn't a myth when they were
No,
put
that happened.
Indochina.
That happened. And these guys were civilians. And that whole story is in here about how they're banging the donut dollies. You know what donut dollies are?
No.
They're Red Cross girls. And they have these Red Cross girls over there in
Donut
Vietnam.
dollars.
And they call them donut dollies. And what they do is They go out to the forward fire bases, not in a real thick combat zone, but a little combat zone.
So
they
weren't using condoms back then when they were banging these donut dollars.
You're not banging no donut dollar. You got to be at least a major above, and it's $250 a throw. How many are you going to bang a night?
Bob also talks about the corruption of the black market, and he explains that in a way, in Bob's own way. I like Bob's staccato style of writing and everything. But
yeah, he definitely does have a unique communication
delivery.
style. Yeah, and I like it.
but anyhow, how the black market, how the phony money is what they use to buy.
Well, the MPC, military payment certificates. It's illegal to have U.S. currency in Vietnam during the war.
Well, how are you going to pay that $250?
MPC.
Which is?
Military payment certificates. It's money. It's monopoly money. It's got pictures of B-52s and tanks on it. You couldn't put politicians on it because no politician wanted to be associated with that war.
Right.
So you had jeeps and tanks and stuff like that, but it's military payment certificate, and about every 6 months they change the currency. So if you're in the black market in Vietnam and you got thousands of dollars in military payment certificates, poof, it's worthless.
Oh, wow.
So what you have to do, you have to go and get somebody to exchange your money for you on the fire base of the LZ that you're at.
And then there's always the
graph.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then see, we talk about the progression of graft and of corruption in the draft from the Civil War to where it was hardly any to the Vietnam War where it was all corruption. Mm-hmm. Everything was graft.
And
I had a 30-round magazine for my weapon. I bought it from a Vietnamese. Mm-hmm. I didn't get it from the military. They didn't have them. The Vietnamese had the 30-round magazine. Mm-hmm. Well, I was a point man. I like to have the extra ammo.
Right, I don't blame you.
Yeah, and so I bought the 30-round clip. But it's just, and these magazines are bought by the U.S. government, meant for us to have.
Right.
But somehow they wind up in the hands of the Vietnamese, and we have to buy them from them. Vietnam was the worst war ever. The people. I want to get back to Joe Heck and his commission.
Oh, by the way.
It's all white.
There were no African Americans.
It's all white.
Hispanic.
There's no person of color on there. There's no Native American on there. There's no Mexican on there. There's no Negro on there.
On what?
On the commission. It's 12. It's 12 of the whitest people you've ever seen.
To expand the draft in the void of an African American representative on that commission, or even a Hispanic.
Hell, none of them have ever been drafted.
And that's all they sent, right?
Yeah, and then none of the commissioners have any draft experience like we have actual experience, But that's why I was kind of like set back a little bit when they didn't dwell on our experience to try and then Bob and I sat there and were thinking, well, that's not their company line. They want to get out there, so they just ignored our statement to the record, which is right here in the book too.
What it's going to come down to is Constitution is going to have the Congress is going to have to float a bill and pass a bill to end the draft. That's because the draft is just suspended right now.
And this commission has already put the recommendation forward. So now the House Armed Services Committee is probably going to have to take this up. Mm-hmm. And they're going to take it up and they're going to see that all this stuff is good and dandy if you volunteer, but they don't really point out that distinction. They blur the line so everybody's going to buy this. Everybody's going to buy, we need this selective service. We need it, selective service like we need a hole in our heads, what we need. Because they didn't think this through. One of the reasons they didn't think it through is because if you go, let's say you draft 1 million people right now to take care of the COVID problem, the pandemic, and then they become COVID contracted, and then they have maladies that you have to tend with, like we have Agent Orange. We have a whole chapter on Agent Orange, too, in here.
Death.
But you see the problem that's going to happen. You can't even, the Department of Veterans Affairs can't even take care of all the Vietnam vets and compensate them for all the maladies that they have for Agent Orange.
They don't want it.
How are they going to even handle another million, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of people, whatever, that come down with maladies afterwards? They're going to have to take care of them.
How long did it take the government to recognize the Agent Orange and start paying out the?
Oh, at least 20 years.
Well,
they won't even pay out of it.
The chapter on Agent Orange is called Mist of Death, and then we get into the epilogue where we actually, fortunately, because of Ranger Bill, we found an Air Force guy that was there when they took the leftover Agent Orange to dump it in the, where was it, South China Sea?
Yeah, South China Sea.
Yeah. So we, it's like we wrote this as historical fiction literature.
Right.
But you're going to read this and you're going to say, these guys couldn't have made this stuff up.
No, the Agent Orange chapters.
We wrote it like that for some obvious reasons. We're talking about people that were killing
I'm
people.
affected by Agent Orange. My teeth. You won't meet a Vietnam veteran that doesn't have dental problems. You won't meet one that does not have dental problems.
Well, explain why that is.
And well, because Agent Orange is a carcinogenic that attaches to your glands. It attaches to your prostate. It attaches to your heart. It attaches to your lymph nodes, your saliva, and it gets in there and it ruins your teeth. I'm sterile. I couldn't figure out. I've screwed more of the women than you know, and that's a lot.
All right, Will Chamberlain.
Yeah, I'm right there with Will. Over 40 or 50 years, because I was never married. I was always single, so what the hell?
Right.
But I couldn't believe that I never had children. And I've had girlfriends that I've had serious relationships with, but I've never had children. Children are the foundation of marriage, to be honest with you. You can't get married on just love or this, that, or the other. There has to be something there that you both have to be attached to and
Commonality.
Yes. And that gives you that, because sex loses its appeal after a while. Unless
How long does it lose its appeal for you?
I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 times, and then I'm off to a new one. But at any rate, I could never figure out why I didn't have children, because then I would probably gotten married. I would have probably married the girl, and we were raised it, and we were living the family's childhood. That's one of the reasons why I took liberties as a drug smuggler, and I took big liberties, big risks. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't have anything to fall back on,
Your conscience
That's why
clear.
that's why I pursued baseball for as long as I did. Most people don't pursue baseball into their 40s, but I had nothing to anchor me down, so I was free to do that. Mm-hmm. So that's all well and good, but I could never figure out why I didn't have children. And I finally went to the doctor, and he said, "You're sterile." And there's only one thing that can be from, and that's from Agent Orange. And the Army doesn't recognize that. The Selective Service, the VA, whatever.
Did you file any disability on that?
Oh, yeah. I fought with them for 5 years over it.
What percentage are you?
100%.
How about you, Mr. Ruff?
20.
They say,
I got the paperwork.
well, what they do is, if you have a real problem that could cost them some money, they just say that you have post-traumatic stress and, you can't hold a job or whatever. And then they just give you the full disability and they give you the money. But they owe me millions, in my opinion.
But you see,
They robbed you of a child.
They robbed me of my life.
and 3 generations of draftees too.
I was in the highest percentage of sprayed areas in 1969. I operated on the what they call the triangle. Cambodia, Laos, and South Vietnam, and then North Vietnam is up there too. And that's where they bring the troops down. They come down on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. They would come down the trail, and then they would infiltrate from Cambodia and Laos. That's why we bombed Cambodia. That's why Nixon had the secret war in Cambodia, was to try to stop that, but he couldn't.
What inspired you guys to write this book?
A peacetime economy. The end of the draft and a peacetime economy. What would it like to live in a world that had a peacetime economy where we didn't have bombs and crap going off every day? Wouldn't it be a nice change?
And
That's what we wrote this book for. That's the whole premise of this book, and it's the whole theory.
And before Mr. Rogers say anything, what do you guys try to accomplish by writing the book?
We want to
abolish the draft.
abolish the draft here and then worldwide, and put the United Nations right out of business as far as soldiers go.
And you see, you know, after all these years, after interviewing all these veterans I've interviewed, you know, I'm talking about my college. The VA had a team that played softball in college, Cal State Hayward. You know, our shortstop was an amputee. Our first baseman was an amputee. This guy Rich Palmer, he could put his, you know, mitt under the stump, feel the ball, flip it up, put the mitt under the stump, and throw you out at first base. And he was our leadoff hitter too, with one hand. These guys were amazing guys, and I was thinking, man, all these guys are here, have stories. And we dedicated the book to all the draftees whose stories were never told. And this goes back for all over time, because there was, you know, these guys didn't get medals for what they did. They just did it. They did it to survive.
1968 was termed the year that changed America. The assassinations, Kennedy wasn't, but Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King were assassinated. And we write about that. And we don't pull any punches either.
You had Malcolm X too that was assassinated.
And Malcolm X, but that was different.
But you see, you know, we, how do I say this? The draft letter you get is from your friends and neighbors, right? That's who we wrote this book for, because those are the folks for whom we answered the call. They never heard what happened after we answered the call. So here it is. It's right here.
If you get a letter that says, "Greetings, you've been selected for the selective service," run.
So we're running out of time, guys. But I wanted each of you to say your last, look into the camera and say
Smile.
your
Yeah.
whatever you want to say about this book and get people to come buy it and whatever. Go with you, Mr. Foust.
This is the book, Last Draftees, lastdraftees.com, capital L and then all case. $21.95. It's available through Amazon. This book is a powerful book. Everybody needs to read it. It has something for everyone. It will make you laugh. It will make you cry. It will make you want to not have a draft. That's what it will make you do. It'll make you want to have a peacetime economy. Stop all the squabbling in politics. Get politicians to work for us instead of against each other. And this book is ultimately aimed at a world peace.
Mr. Roger.
I don't know how you can top that, because Bob really put his heart into that. And
We should have let you go first then.
no, I just want to say that you know, the most rewarding part about this book has been working with these incredible guys, you know, like Bob and Larry and Willie and all the other veterans out there who, you know, I've interviewed over the years, and their stories are part of this book too, you know, and it's written for all of you out there. You know, it's not just it's not one political party. It's not a political book. It's a historical fiction literature that you ought to read, and it ought to be passed around, because we don't want American history to get swept under the carpet. That's the idea here.
What is this book rated? R, X, PG?
I would say it's probably rated R.
Yeah, I think you can make it R. Yeah, it's an R. You definitely.
This is the read of a lifetime. Don't miss it.
There you go.
Well, I just want to say this. I want to thank both of you gentlemen for coming on. Try not to get too choked up, but I have an uncle that was, and I don't speak of him much, because he was drafted. He went into the Marines in '68 in Vietnam.
Robert probably knows.
And to this day, he is almost unfunctional.
Yeah.
And for you two to be able to go through the stuff that you guys have went through and be able to write a book and be out there, and I've known Robert for a while now, just that you guys can still stay functional and are trying to do something to help.
Revenge.
Really
best
proud of it.
motivator. That's Steve.
No, but you guys, I feel a real sense of pride for that. And I appreciate you guys writing this book.
Good.
Because I just don't think that young people today truly understand.
Yeah. And with COVID-19 out there, you don't have anything else to do anyway. So buy a copy of Last Draftees.
You don't have to
read
go
it.
shopping. You can order this from your rocking chair and your smartphone. Just go right on there and do your Christmas shopping right now.
Well, guys, I want to thank both of you for coming on the show. It's an honor to have both of you on here.
And we want to thank you for having us
Privileged
on.
to be here,
And,
Steve.
and I appreciate you guys putting it in writing so you share your thoughts and your ideas and your experience and your memories about how the Vietnam formulated, in your opinion, and your two other colleagues, Willie McTeer and Larry Keller. And I want to thank you guys for coming on the program and explaining this book to us. Thank you, folks. That we're honored and proud to have Mr. Robert Foust and Mr. Keith Rogers, both authors of this book, The Last Draftees. Go to Amazon.com to get your copy. I believe it's $21.95, and it's an R-rated book. So I don't know if you have mature children that like I do, that read things like this. My kid reads. She's 12 and she reads Stephen King. So I have her reading this. I think she's on page. I believe it was last time I saw her read. It was on page 31, somewhere around there. But get your copy. You guys got a website?
The website is lastdraftees.com, and it's just spelled like Last Draftees, all one word, .com.
Thank you. Folks, that's Robert Foust and Keith Rogers, Vietnam veterans in the Army and author of The Last Draftees. Get your copy. Get it soon. Get it quick. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jonas for Veterans in Politics. Until next time.